city glowed like liquid gold that night, the kind of night where expensive cars whispered down wet streets and skyscrapers glimmered like trophies in the mist. Daniel Hayes, a 42-year-old tech millionaire, was used to moving through that glittering world without really seeing it. His life was spreadsheets and stock charts, endless meetings, and a penthouse view that overlooked everything, but connected him to nothing. He had built an empire out of algorithms and ambition, but lately, he felt like a ghost moving through glass. That night, after another corporate dinner filled with fake laughter and champagne that tasted like emptiness, Daniel told his driver to stop near the old district, the part of the city people like him usually pretended didn't exist. He didn't know why. Maybe he just wanted air that hadn't been filtered through money. Maybe he was running from the quiet in his own apartment. The car stopped beside a closed bakery, its window fogged with rain. That's when he saw her. A little girl, no older than 8, sitting beside a trash bin behind the alley. Her knees pulled to her chest, her face buried in her arms. The streetlight above flickered, throwing shadows over her small, trembling body. At first, Daniel thought she might be lost or waiting for someone, until he noticed the thin sweater she wore, soaked through, and the small paper bag in her lap that had split open, spilling 2 crushed sandwiches onto the wet concrete. She wasn't waiting for anyone. She was surviving. Something sharp twisted inside him. He stepped out of the car despite his driver's hesitation. "Sir, it's not safe here," the man warned, but Daniel barely heard him. His shoes splashed through a shallow puddle as he approached her. The girl flinched when his shadow fell across her. "Hey," he said softly, kneeling down a few feet away, careful not to startle her. "Are you okay?" She didn't look up. Her voice came out small and hoarse. "Please, don't take my food." The words hit him harder than he expected, like a punch that went straight to the chest. "I'm not here to take anything," he said quickly. "I just want to help." She lifted her head then, and Daniel froze. Her eyes, wide, frightened but defiant, were the same hazel color as his daughter's had been before the accident 3 years ago. He hadn't seen eyes like that since the day he lost her. His breath caught as if the universe had reached out and pressed on an old wound. "What's your name?" he asked gently. "Lena," she whispered. "My mom said not to talk to strangers." "That's good advice," Daniel said, forcing a smile. "Your mom sounds smart. Where is she now?" Lena's lip trembled. She looked toward the dark alley behind the dumpster. "She went to look for something to eat," she said quietly. "She said she'd be back soon. But it's been a long time." Daniel's throat tightened. The city noises seemed to fade away. No traffic, no hum of neon. Just the sound of rain hitting pavement and a child trying not to cry. He took off his coat and gently draped it around her shoulders. She stiffened, then relaxed as warmth began to sink in. "We'll wait for her together," he said softly, though he wasn't sure he believed it. Something about the way she sat there, so small, so still, told him her mother might not be coming back. And for the first time in years, Daniel felt something raw, something human break through the numbness he had built around his heart. He didn't know it yet, but this moment, this girl, was about to change everything he thought he knew about love, loss, and what it truly meant to save someone. The rain had slowed to a drizzle, but the cold stayed, biting at Daniel's skin as he crouched beside the little girl. Lena sat quietly, clutching his coat around her small frame like armor. Every so often, she would glance toward the corner of the alley, her lips parting as if expecting her mother to appear, but no one came. Daniel tried to distract her. "What's in the bag?" he asked gently. She looked down at the soggy paper, the sandwiches smashed from the fall. "It was for Mom," she said. "I found them in the bin behind the shop. They're old, but not all bad." Her words cracked something inside him. A girl this young shouldn't have to say sentences like that. He took a breath, glancing toward his driver waiting near the car. The man stood under an umbrella, watching uneasily, but didn't move. "You shouldn't be out here alone," Daniel said carefully. Do you have somewhere you stay? She hesitated, tracing circles on the pavement with her finger. We used to live in a shelter, but they said we had to leave when Mom got sick. Her voice dropped. People don't like when you can't pay. Daniel felt anger rise in his chest. Not at her, but at the quiet cruelty of the world that could let a child freeze behind a bakery while men like him sipped wine above the skyline. He looked around, unsure what to do. He couldn't just leave her. But if he called the police or child services, she'd end up lost in the system. He'd seen it happen before. His foundation had donated millions to fix problems that never seemed to end. But now, sitting here in the dark with a trembling child, he realized that money didn't fix people. People fixed people. Lena, he said softly, how long has your mom been gone? She didn't answer at first. Then she whispered, since the morning. His stomach turned. It was almost midnight. He reached into his wallet and pulled out a card, then stopped. What was he doing? Handing her a business card. What she needed wasn't an email address or a phone number. She needed food, warmth, safety. He stood up, running a hand through his hair, frustration bubbling under his calm tone. Listen, I'm going to get you something to eat. You can stay warm in my car for a bit, okay? I'll make sure you're safe until your mom comes. Lena shook her head violently. No, she said not to go with strangers. Her small voice quivered, but her conviction was strong. Daniel knelt again, meeting her eyes. You're right to be careful, but I promise I won't hurt you. I have a daughter. He stopped. The sentence caught in his throat. I had a daughter. Something in his voice softened Lena's fear. She looked at him for a long moment, then whispered, did she get lost too? The words hit harder than any accusation could. Daniel felt his throat close. He wanted to tell her the truth, that his daughter, Emma, had died in a car accident on a rainy night not unlike this one, that he had blamed himself every day since, that he had tried to fill the silence with work, but the guilt had followed him like a ghost. But instead, he only nodded. Yeah, he said quietly. She got lost, and I couldn't find her. Lena's gaze softened. Then you know what it feels like. It was such a simple thing to say, yet it shattered him completely. He swallowed hard and nodded again. Yeah, kid, I know exactly what it feels like. A moment passed before Lena finally stood up, shivering. Okay, she said quietly. I'll come, but only if we can look for my mom after. Daniel nodded, his heart breaking at the trust she'd just given him. We will, he promised. He walked her to the car, opening the back door and handing her a blanket from the seat. She curled up instantly, exhausted but relieved. As the car began to move, Daniel looked back through the window, the alley fading into darkness, and felt the weight of every choice he'd made pressing down on him. He didn't know it yet, but this little girl wasn't just someone he was saving. She was about to save him too, in ways no amount of money or success ever could. The car's heater hummed softly as Daniel watched raindrops streak down the tinted window. Beside him, the little girl sat bundled in his oversized coat, her head leaning against the glass. Every few minutes, she blinked as if fighting sleep, then tightened her grip on a small object in her hands. A worn piece of paper folded so many times it had nearly torn in half. Daniel glanced at it, curiosity flickering. What's that? He asked gently. Lena hesitated before slowly unfolding it. Inside was a faded photograph, a younger woman with tired but kind eyes holding a little girl on her lap. They were sitting in front of a small brick apartment, smiling. That's my mom, she said quietly. We used to live there. Before. She trailed off, her voice shrinking to a whisper. Before she got sick. Daniel took a closer look. The photo was creased and smudged, but the woman's face was clear enough, and something about it made his chest tighten. There was a familiarity in her features, a shadow of someone he'd seen before, but he couldn't place it. He studied the photo again before handing it back. "She looks strong," he said. Lena nodded. "She is. She just gets tired a lot." Her words were simple, but they carried the kind of weight only a child who'd seen too much could bear. The car pulled into the parking garage beneath Daniel's apartment building. He turned to his driver. "Thanks, Mark. You can go home for the night." The man's eyebrows rose slightly. "Sir, are you sure?" Daniel nodded. "Yeah, we'll be fine." He guided Lena through the lobby, where the night security guard looked at them in surprise. The sight of a billionaire walking in with a soaking wet child clutching a photo was not something that happened often on this side of town. Daniel ignored the stairs, pressing the elevator button to the top floor. When the doors opened, Lena's eyes widened. The penthouse was all glass and light, floor-to-ceiling windows, marble floors, city views stretching forever. But to her, it looked more lonely than beautiful. "It's really big," she whispered. "Do you live here all by yourself?" Daniel nodded slowly. "Yeah, just me." She frowned. "Why? Don't you get scared?" The question made him pause. "Scared of what?" "Of the quiet," she said simply. He smiled faintly, though there was no humor in it. "All the time." He led her to the kitchen and warmed a bowl of soup while she sat on the counter, her feet swinging above the polished floor. She ate slowly, savoring each bite like it was something rare. He noticed she kept glancing around the room, like she couldn't quite believe all this space was real. After dinner, he brought her one of his daughter's old blankets. Soft, pink, still folded from years ago. Lena traced the embroidered name stitched on the corner. "Emma, was this your little girl's?" she asked. Daniel froze, then nodded. "Yeah, she loved that blanket." Lena smiled gently. "Then maybe she'd want me to use it for a little while." He swallowed hard, emotion rising like a tide he couldn't stop. "I think she'd like that." That night, after Lena fell asleep on the couch, Daniel sat by the window, staring at the skyline. The storm had passed, leaving the city glowing with rain-soaked light. He felt something he hadn't felt in years. Not peace exactly, but the first fragile hint of it. Around midnight, his phone buzzed. A message from his assistant. "Urgent. News report. Woman found unconscious near Eastbridge Alley. Possible overdose. Minor in custody expected." Daniel's stomach dropped. Eastbridge Alley. The same place he'd found Lena. He rushed to his desk and opened the local news site. The photo on the screen hit him like a blow. A stretcher being loaded into an ambulance. The woman's face was pale, her hair tangled, but unmistakable. It was the woman from Lena's photograph. Her mother. And in that instant, Daniel realized the girl asleep on his couch wasn't just lost. She was standing at the edge of losing everything. He sat there for a long time, staring at the image, the sound of the city echoing faintly below. Then he whispered, almost to himself, "Not this time." He picked up the phone and called his private doctor. "I need a medical team at Mercy Hospital now. And make sure that woman, Rosa Delgado, is transferred under my care. Whatever it costs." Because Daniel Hayes had already lost one child to tragedy. He wasn't about to lose another to the streets. The next morning, sunlight filtered through the penthouse windows, painting long streaks of gold across the marble floor. Daniel sat at the kitchen island with a cup of untouched coffee, his thoughts heavy, circling around the image of the woman from the news, Lena's mother. Rosa Delgado. The name had been confirmed by his doctor just a few hours earlier. She was alive but barely, found behind a convenience store dumpster less than a mile from where he'd met Lena. Unconscious, dehydrated, her system wrecked from exhaustion and lack of food. The hospital staff said it was a miracle she had survived the night. Daniel looked toward the living room. Lena was still asleep on the couch, curled under Emma's pink blanket, her small chest rising and falling softly. She looked peaceful now, but he could see the remnants of fear even in her rest, the way she held the edges of the blanket tight, like the world might take it away if she let go. He didn't want to wake her, but he knew she deserved to know the truth. He crouched beside the couch and spoke gently. "Lena, hey, sweetheart." Her eyes fluttered open, confused at first, then remembering where she was. "Did Mom come back?" she asked immediately. Daniel hesitated, his throat tightening. "No, not yet. But I found her." Her eyes widened. "You did?" He nodded slowly. "She's at the hospital. She got sick, but she's safe now. The doctors are taking care of her." Lena sat up, clutching Milo, the small stuffed bear she carried everywhere, and whispered, "Can I see her?" Daniel smiled faintly. "Yeah, as soon as the doctors say it's okay." He called ahead to Mercy Hospital before they left, arranging for privacy, making sure the cameras and questions stayed away. When they arrived, the staff already knew who he was. His name carried weight, but for once, Daniel didn't care about that. He only cared about the small hand gripping his as they walked through the sterile hallway. Rosa's room was quiet except for the soft rhythm of machines. She looked fragile under the hospital blanket, too pale, too thin, but her chest rose and fell steadily. Lena froze in the doorway, her fingers trembling around Daniel's. For a moment, she couldn't move. Then she whispered, "Mom!" There was no answer, but Daniel gently guided her forward. "It's okay," he said softly. "She can hear you." Lena climbed up onto the chair beside the bed, setting Milo carefully near her mother's hand. "You came back," she whispered, her voice breaking. "I waited just like you said." Daniel turned away, pretending to check his phone to hide the sting in his eyes. He'd seen business collapses, lawsuits, even funerals, but nothing had ever made him feel this small, this fragile, this human. After a while, he stepped outside the room to speak with the doctor. "What are her chances?" The doctor, a man in his 50s with kind eyes, sighed. "She's stable, but her body's exhausted. Malnutrition, infection, mild hypothermia. She'll recover with rest, but the bigger challenge will be her emotional state. She's been through hell." Daniel nodded, his jaw tightening. "Whatever she needs, medication, therapy, a place to stay, I'll handle it." The doctor gave him a long look. "You care about them." Daniel didn't hesitate. "They deserve better than what life gave them." That evening, Lena refused to leave her mother's side. Daniel sat in the corner, watching quietly as she drew little hearts on a napkin and taped it to the monitor beside Rosa's bed. "So she knows I'm here," Lena said. When the nurse came to dim the lights, Daniel stood. "I'll come back in the morning," he told her. "Get some sleep, okay?" But as he turned to go, Lena's small voice stopped him. "Will she be okay?" He hesitated, then knelt so they were eye level. "She's strong," he said softly. "And now she's not alone anymore. Neither are you." She nodded, wiping her eyes. Then she looked up and whispered, "You sound like my mom." Daniel froze, caught off guard. "What do you mean?" "She used to say that when things got bad, she'd tell me, 'We're not alone, even when it feels like it.'" Daniel smiled faintly, the kind of smile that comes from something breaking open inside you. "She's right," he said. Later that night, after leaving the hospital, Daniel drove home alone. The city lights blurred against the windshield, each one reflecting the faces he couldn't stop seeing. His daughter, Lena, Rosa, all the people life had taken from him, and the one small chance he'd been given to make something right. When he parked in front of his building, he didn't go inside right away. He sat in silence, rain starting again, tapping softly against the glass. Then, without thinking, he whispered the same words Lena had said hours earlier. "We're not alone." He didn't realize it yet, but those words would soon become a promise. Not just to her, but to himself. 2 days passed before Rosa opened her eyes. It happened in the early morning, when the hospital was still half asleep and the hallway smelled faintly of coffee and disinfectant. Daniel had spent the night sitting in a chair by the window, his jacket draped over his lap, his phone full of unanswered messages from investors and board members demanding his attention. But for the first time in years, he didn't care about the meetings, the deadlines, or the empire he had built. He only cared about the small hospital bed across the room, and the little girl sleeping beside it with her hand curled around her mother's. He almost missed it at first. The faint stir of movement, a flutter of eyelashes, the soft sound of breath changing. Then he saw her eyes open. Rosa blinked, confusion clouding her gaze as she tried to understand where she was. Daniel stood immediately, heart pounding. "Don't move too fast," he said gently, stepping closer. "You're safe." Her eyes darted around the room, landing on the machines, the 4-line, and finally on Lena, sleeping in the chair, head resting on the edge of the mattress. The tension in Rosa's shoulders melted instantly. Her voice came out as a fragile whisper. "My baby." Daniel smiled faintly. "She's been here every minute. She never gave up on you." Rosa's eyes filled with tears as she reached out to brush a strand of hair from her daughter's face. "I was so afraid she'd be alone," she said weakly. "I didn't mean to leave her there. I couldn't find anything. No food. No place to go." Her voice cracked, raw with guilt. "I was trying to come back." Daniel shook his head. "You don't have to explain. You're here now. That's what matters." When Lena stirred awake and saw her mother's eyes open, the sound that came out of her was half a sob, half a laugh. "Mom!" she cried, climbing onto the bed and wrapping her arms around Rosa's shoulders. The monitors beeped in protest, but no one cared. Daniel turned away for a moment, pretending to fix the curtain, because the sight of them, reunited, fragile, real, was almost too much. Later that afternoon, the doctor cleared Rosa for limited visits, but warned she would need rest and rehabilitation. "She's weak," he told Daniel quietly, "but she's lucky. Another day outside, and she wouldn't have made it." Daniel looked through the glass at the two of them, mother and daughter holding hands, sharing quiet smiles, and he realized luck had nothing to do with it. It was grace. Over the next few days, he made sure everything Rosa needed was handled. The hospital bills were paid in advance, the nutritionist assigned, a private therapist scheduled for after discharge. When Rosa protested, insisting she couldn't accept charity, Daniel stopped her gently. "This isn't charity," he said. "It's gratitude for reminding me what really matters." She looked at him for a long moment before nodding, eyes glistening. "You helped my daughter when no one else would. I don't know how to thank you." "Just take care of her," Daniel said softly. "That's thanks enough." When Rosa was finally discharged, he arranged for them to stay in a small townhouse owned by one of his companies. Warm, furnished, safe. He drove them there himself. The moment Lena stepped inside, she ran from room to room, laughing, opening every door like she was afraid it might disappear. "There's a kitchen," she shouted, "and a real bed." Rosa stood in the doorway, still fragile, holding a small paper bag of belongings. She looked around the bright living room, then at Daniel. "I don't deserve this," she whispered. He smiled faintly. "Neither do I. But maybe that's the point. Sometimes the best things in life aren't earned. They're given." They shared a long silence, the kind that says more than words ever could. Lena, oblivious to the emotion in the air, ran back and hugged Daniel's leg. "Are you staying for dinner?" she asked with the innocent certainty that he would. Daniel hesitated, then knelt down to her level. "You know," he said, "I think I'd like that." That evening, the three of them ate together, soup, bread, laughter, the kind of simple meal that money couldn't buy. Daniel watched as Rosa smiled for the first time in years, as Lena told stories between mouthfuls of food, and for the first time since his daughter's death, he felt something new, Not just healing but belonging. Later, when he returned home, the penthouse felt emptier than ever. The silence, once comforting, now felt unbearable. He walked past his daughter's old room, paused, and whispered to the empty space, "I think you'd like them, Emma." And deep down, he knew that if she could see him now, helping someone instead of running from his pain, she'd finally be proud. The next morning, a small envelope was waiting at his office door. Inside was a child's drawing. 3 stick figures holding hands beside a bright yellow sun. At the bottom, written in careful, uneven letters, were the words, "You didn't walk away." Daniel smiled, really smiled, for the first time in years.